right, guys, this is a lovely, intimate crowd, which I like. We can have a lot of discussion, and you guys can answer or ask any question to Diani and I. And we can have some in-depth tips provided. So, welcome. I'm Grace Ruth, for those of you who do not know me, Associate Director of the East Asian Studies Center. We've been doing some form of this East Asia Career Panel since 2013. Because one of the questions we get a lot, as you can imagine, is, what can I do with the East Asian Studies major? What kind of jobs can I get? And we thought, what better way to explain than to bring alumni back, and they could share with you their career paths, given their academic interests and backgrounds while they were here, which is very similar to our students. And our alumni are incredible. Like, they go on to do amazing things in all different professions. Public, private, nonprofit, grad school, PhD, law, you name it, they do it. So every year is a different group that comes through. And so we're very fortunate to have Ayaka and Diani, and Caitlin will introduce them more formally in a little bit. But before we begin, I really have to thank my incredible team, without whom none of our events would be possible. And that's Justine Fan, over there in the back, our program officer and the coordinator, and Caitlin Lamb, as everyone knows, is our undergrad advisor, and our program officer. I'm just going to hand it to Caitlin now.
Awesome. Hey, happy Lunar New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the 2025, sorry. Oh no. Welcome to the 2025 East Asia Career Panel, hosted by the East Asian Studies Center at USC. I'm Caitlin, and I'm thrilled to serve as your moderator for today's event. This panel is an excellent opportunity to gain insights into diverse career paths related to East Asian studies, and also learn how an academic background in this field can translate into professional success. Also, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, Rochelle Wong will not be able to join us for the 2025 East Asia Career Panel, but we appreciate her willingness to participate and wish her all the best. So we are honored to have our two distinguished panelists with us today who bring a wealth of experience and unique perspectives to the discussion. Let me introduce them to you. So on our right, we have Diani Simmons. Diani!
Hi.
Diani Simmons is a junior researcher at Interpret, where they conduct qualitative research on video games and technology through moderation and analysis of focus groups, interviews, and playtests. She joined Interpret as an assistant research analyst after an internship following their time at USC. Calling San Diego and Las Vegas their home, Diani graduated from USC in 2024 with a BA in East Asian Area Studies and Global Studies as a Questford Scholar. As an undergraduate student, you were a two-time USC Korean Studies Undergraduate Research Fellow, co-founder of the Student Journal of Asian Studies at USC, and a USC Research Gateway Scholar, where she produced media and qualitative research on Korean cinema, television, webtoons, and boys love fandom. She also studied abroad at Yonsei University in Seoul, where she improved her Korean language skills. And Ayaka on the left. Ayaka is a second-year law student at LMU Loyola Law School. Last summer, she was a judicial extern at the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit for the Honorable Kim McLean Ward Law. This summer, she will be a summer associate at a law firm in her hometown, Honolulu. Prior to starting law school, she was a registration and collections intern at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art and a gallery intern at LA Louvre, which is a contemporary art gallery in Venice Beach. She is passionate about art restitution, cultural heritage issues, and the intersection of law and art. During her time at USC, Ayaka double majored in law, history and culture, and East Asian Area Studies. She was the inaugural student of the East Asian Area Studies Honors Program and wrote her thesis on Uman-ryugu, which is the Japanese radical feminist movement of the 1970s. She speaks Japanese with native fluency and has interned at a law firm in Osaka, Japan. Yes. Give it up for our two panelists. Great, so let's begin with our first question. How did you get on your career path, and what interested you in this field?
You go first. Okay. So I guess my career path is law and sub-career path art. For law, I've always been interested in the law. I did mock trial in high school, and I was pre-law at USC, so that's kind of always been in my rearview mirror. For art, I grew up in Hawaii, and I feel like growing up in such a unique place, I was exposed to a lot of Pan-Asian culture growing up. So having that proximity to different East Asian cultures and like art was pretty influential for me.
Great. For me, I've always kind of been into research ever since high school. I did IB in high school, and one of the requirements in order to get the, be awarded the degree is to complete like a research paper too. And one of my first research papers was on like K-pop, because I was also really into like K-pop and stuff growing up. So when I first arrived at USC, that was kind of my focus. I really wanted to continue studying like media and culture as it relates to Japan and Korea. So I kind of focused my time at USC around that. And also I've just been a really big games fan, honestly. I've always played games growing up, and combining, my knowledge of East Asia, I was able to kind of go abroad, which I'll talk about later, and that really solidified my interest in maybe making games and combining East Asian studies with my career. So.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's really great to hear about your background and also how you turned that into a career path. My next question is, how has your Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and/or East Asian studies background, including courses, internationally abroad experiences, helped you in your professional and academic career? And why do you feel like these experiences are important?
I think, well, I'm a law student right now, but I've had a number of jobs beforehand, and I've also done like summer jobs as law students do. But I think my East Asia background and also like my Japanese background has helped in terms of both art and law. For law, I think being able to say that I worked in a multicultural environment and did research in different languages has been very helpful. I got an internship at a law firm in Osaka, Japan while I was at USC, and I think having that EASC background was helpful in kind of bridging that path. I also took ELC 440 with Yumi Matsumoto. I think it's a Japanese, advanced Japanese language class. And that was really helpful in bridging my confidence about my own Japanese language skills. My entire family is Japanese, but I grew up in the US. I did go to Japanese Saturday school, but having done all of my schoolwork and my community is just English language based, being able to rely on EAS to kind of provide me with that like extra like language education and confidence was really important. In terms of my art and museum background, I think it's a little bit more self-explanatory. A lot of my coursework at USC was in Japanese history and culture and visual and performance arts. So being able to kind of talk about that was really great during the interviews. And I think no matter how related or unrelated your East Asian like schoolwork is to your preferred career, being passionate about something is always like a very attractive, it's a very attractive attribute to have in interviews. So I've talked about my thesis in every single interview that I've had, both with law school admissions and with like miscellaneous jobs. And kind of being able to exude that like curiosity and interest has been, I feel like it's been really helpful.
Oh, great. Yeah, for me, the having like a background in East Asian area studies has, well, number one, I went to Yonsei University for about a semester in fall 2022, which was my junior year. And while I was there, I studied Korean, but also I went out a lot and I explored like Seoul as a city. And part of that was going to a lot of PCbangs and exploring like the culture around like going to a PCbang and like being in that space, like the gaming space. And I think just having like the, especially like the language training in order to actually experience that personally and in such like an intimate way where I feel like if I didn't have the like Korean language skills that I did, I probably wouldn't have been able to engage with it to such a big degree. So that was probably very, very integral to my ability to like, engage in Korean gaming culture as well. And I think like that really solidified my interest in like games, just like being involved in it and getting to like meet people who play games as well. And I definitely want to echo what you said about like, expressing like the passion that you have for just East Asian studies in general, because I also did the exact same thing in my interviews as well. I talked a little bit about my research in interviews, and that I think really helped with like helping me stand out to the position that I got at Interpret as well. And yeah, I think like overall that experience was also really helpful to understand like since in my career the stuff that I do is it's about games, and games attract such a global audience. It's really important, especially with games having such a big crowd in like Japan and Korea as far as like developers and players. It's really important to be familiar with like those like cultural backgrounds and like understanding like anything that may affect like habits or behaviors of players that may differ from being in the US, for example. So just having that background is really helpful for, if just a random question comes up or adjusting like a research design or anything like that. It's really integral, and not a lot of people have that background or like training, so it really helps you stand out. Yeah.
That was really good. Thank you both for highlighting how important research is, and your personal academic research really helped you in your interview process. For all of you who are planning to interview soon, keep that in mind. You might have written a really good research paper in your class. Also, I just want to highlight, Diani mentioned studying abroad. We also have 2 study abroad programs that Global East Asia offers, and next year we're going to offer one to Korea, which is going to be our first Korean Maymester in a few years. So if you want, you can also sign up over there. We have a QR code and some flyers you can check out later. Great, we're going to move on to our next question. What are some challenges or obstacles you have faced in your career? This could be your academic career, or this could also be your professional career. Start with Aya.
Yeah. I think for me, I feel like I've been a lifelong student. I did my undergrad at USC. I did take a gap year where I worked in the art and museum industry, but now I'm a law student again. So I think for me, my greatest challenge has been to be like patient and stay on track. Sometimes, when you are a student, you just kind of feel like you just want your like life to get started already. But being able to pursue your interests and like your academic like passions and interests is like something that's like very valuable, and I definitely will miss it when I go into the workforce, I'm sure. I think in addition to that, I feel like my resume has taken a lot of pivots. I've always been consistently pre-law, but I did have my stint in art, and now I'm going back into law. I worked in the judiciary a little bit, and I'm going to be working in Hawaii this upcoming summer at a law firm. So I think that's taught me that life does take a lot of twists and turns, but it's important to stay long-term and goal-oriented, and to be sure that you can build on your experiences and not feel discouraged if things kind of take a lot of turns.
Yeah, so in my academic career at USC, I think one challenge I really faced a lot was I feel like I did quite a bit while I was at USC, which kind of resulted in me almost overworking myself, just trying to get as much done as possible, and also just being so focused on wanting to go out and get my life started as well. And so I think that was probably the one thing that I ended up having to unlearn when I graduated, was not having to constantly having to pursue something spectacular and fantastic and do a million things at once. I think it's really easy as a student to kind of want to do that because you want to impress people and buff up your resume and stuff, but also You have to make time to like take care of yourself and spend time with your friends. And then after I graduated, I think the biggest obstacle that I only recently overcome, if I'm being honest, is like imposter syndrome. I think like, you know, it's like really easy to, especially like if you're used to being a student and you have like that instant gratification of like a grade or constant feedback from, you know, a professor or just people you know. When you start working, it's not, it doesn't work that way. And especially when you're like a junior and getting your career started, it's, you know, you don't know a lot and you have to like really be open-minded to like learn really quickly and don't self-doubt so much because you do have like the skills. You're in the role for a reason. But, you know, you also realize like you don't know everything and there's a lot that you need to learn really, really quickly. So yeah, and also like from my time in academia, just learning how to slow down was also a really important thing for me too.
Thank you so much for sharing and being honest and addressing these challenges. My next question for you both is, what is the most important advice you feel like you can give to students here? And what do you wish you had known while you were at USC?
I think for me, I might have reiterated this before, but it truly is to pursue your interests and pursue your curiosities. Whether you're an undergrad or like a master's student or a law student, the time that you have as a student is so precious. Like the time to be able to literally just put your head down and study is something that it really is a privilege. And especially when you're at such a fantastic research institution like USC, there's literally so many different classes that you can take. And I would just encourage people to not limit yourself to things that are like career related. Whether you want to pursue something East Asia related or not, just like take the classes that you like. I mean, take that Japanese culture class with Professor Bialock, or take that history class with Professor Uchiyama. You're not going to be able to do that ever again in your life. I mean, maybe, but like, you know, likely not. So, you know, just make time and hold space for all those things that interest you. You're definitely not going to regret it.
Yeah, I definitely want to echo that. Just definitely make time to do things you want to do. I think, again, like, I think as students, we fall into the trap of wanting to impress people, but it's really important to really foster those parts of yourself that, you know, brings you joy, brings you happiness. It will really, really help after you graduate too, because ultimately your life shifts of like the divide of like, you have work and then you have everything else. So understanding how you can like fill that time, because, you know, you don't have to do homework or you don't have to like go to an event after work. You clock in and you clock out. So understanding what you want to do and like continue that and foster that can also be really helpful. And also I would say like network and connect with just people around you, and not just like network up, but network like horizontally too. Like connect with students that are like next to you. I wish I did more of that, honestly. And, you know, like you kind of like play the long game, I guess, if that's like the best way I can describe it. Just, you know, connect with people, and, you know, that could be really fruitful to not only you, but like the people you connected with like long term when you guys are years into your career. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Well, shifting gears into your current role, what are some benefits and opportunities available in your career? What is the most rewarding aspect of your job now? Or studies. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one pitch that I have for the law is that like anyone can do it. It's not like med school where you have to have a specific sustained coursework in order to apply to law school. You can literally have majored in anything that you want, and you just have to take the LSAT and a couple of exams in order to like enter law school and then become a practicing attorney. And also, like, if you are a very like specialized mindset kind of person, the law has so many different specializations, be it in like entertainment or IP or like litigation, trust and estates, immigration. Like if you want to specialize in something, you definitely can. But also I think the law is a perfect career path for the generalists too, just because the law touches so many different aspects of human life. So if you are someone with broad interests, that definitely will be helpful as a lawyer. In terms of art and the museum industry, it's just a great place to be. I think you do get to, you're in touch with learning as an adult, and kind of being a part of institutions of culture is always just a big privilege. And for people who are really interested in research or education, or kind of creating that link and nexus with the next generation, I think art and museum it's a great place to be.
Yeah, great. So for me, I think there's quite a few opportunities that can be utilized, at least in the field of like games research, and also just research in general. Like, for example, I think one thing is the career that I am developing now, I think can be easily pivoted to like UX research or user experience research, which is more of like a corporate-y job, but yeah, that's like one way. And then also, like, I personally still want to go to grad school in the future, so you know, having that also is really great for grad school, just developing stuff for my application, and hopefully go for a doctorate degree in the future. And then ultimately, like, also, I think my experience has allowed me to meet a lot of cool people, making a lot of cool different things. And so I get to develop my like communication skills, obviously, my presentation skills, which is super cool. And also like understand how to like translate like everyday speak into more like professional speak, and just like represent people to people who are like working on things that everyone wants to experience. And yeah, and also just like meeting people passionate about games is also really cool. I get to be a little bit nerdy at work, which is awesome, so yeah.
All right, my last question for you both is, what advice would you give students about changing careers, jobs, or even majors?
I think do it. Yeah, just do it, quite honestly. I came in as a law history and culture major, and I added EASC later on after coming to USC. And I really think it's just because it's, you know, literally just do it. I feel like going through a quarter life job change is so common. Going through a midlife job change is so common. So everything you learn in school is just another thing in your tool pocket that you will then bring into work, whether that be your desired like position as of now, or like something that you might discover later on. And yeah, just being able to say that I was really passionate about something during school and I pursued it wholeheartedly is a strength in and of itself. So yeah. Change your majors to EAS.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I came to school, I had like a very similar experience. I came to school actually with the BA East Asian Area Studies, like just that one. Yeah. And I originally added IR, but then I realized, I think I actually had a conversation with someone at the library because I was working there initially. And like she pitched to me like global studies, which was the other piece of my BA, and I swear I like changed it overnight. I think I changed it the next morning, and I'm really, really glad I did, because not only like obviously I got a lot of like training in ethnography and anthropology, which I literally use every single day at work. So I think just follow your heart, like follow your intuition, I think is really important too. I feel like if, you know, your mind or your subconscious is telling you like, hey, maybe you should like check out this one thing, or I'm always been interested in this thing. You'll find a way to like utilize that in your career. I think don't overthink it too much. Just like do it. And also, I would recommend just be flexible as much as possible. So much can change like so quickly, and especially like when you're, out of school. I think I feel like you can't plan like a year or two in advance anymore compared to like being in school where you have like a set like class plan or like degree plan. So yeah, be patient with that too, and just like be open-minded to opportunities when they come your way. Even if you're just like, oh, maybe, I'm not sure though. Maybe just like walk into a place and see what happens, because I feel like part of your journey as like starting your career is just being in the right place at the right time. So. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, both, for your time and for sharing your wisdom with us. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor to Q&A. So if any of you guys have any questions for our two amazing panelists, this is your chance to ask.
In a safe space.
The door's closed.
Can I just make a comment that both of you are mature beyond your years, and I'm so impressed. I mean, you guys both are recent graduates, literally, like 2024, 3, right?
2022.
Oh, 2022. And look how wise they are already. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and sharing.
If no one has a question immediately, I do have a question. I was wondering, for Ayaka, how did you achieve, or like, how were you able to find your internship abroad, and how was the application process? And then for Diani, how was the application process or job searching process for your current position?
Right.
Sorry, Ayaka first, maybe?
Yes, so I interned at this law firm in Japan called Daiichi Law Firm, and it truly was, I knew a friend who knew a friend who knew a friend. And I think that just kind of speaks to the value of networking. They weren't initially taking like American or English speaking interns, and I think the reason why I got it was because of my kind of more extensive Japanese language skills. And it also so happened that one of the partners there got his LLM at USC Gould Law School, so I think that also helped. But yeah, I kind of had to convince them to let me work there, and it truly was because I had to somewhat fake it till I make it and pretend that I was of the caliber of just like a Japanese law student, which I definitely was not. I can speak Japanese, and I kind of studied the law-ish in English, but that kind of was it. So if anything, I think that speaks to just approaching things with confidence as much as you can, and putting yourself out there, putting your resumes out there, because you never know what's going to stick.
Yeah, definitely on that note, like my experience like applying for my current position, actually same thing. First time I applied, it was for an internship junior year. I actually got ghosted.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
All the time.
But I still was like, I really want to work here. I really want to like learn how to, be in this field and like learn about games and stuff. So I ended up applying again because I realized I had like a huge like spreadsheet of just like applications for internships my senior year. And I looked at like a past sheet and I realized I applied there and like I didn't get any like feedback on it or anything. So I was just like, oh, let me try again. Let's see what happens. And like within a week or something, I had like an interview, and then like within like 2 or 3 weeks, I had an offer. So it was just like timing ultimately. So yeah, like on that note, just throw your resume out there. Sometimes it's like ultimately up to chance, and in addition to like obviously having skills and stuff too, but also it depends on like who's looking at your application, who else is applying with you too, as factors of like whether or not things would like work out or not. So yeah, and I went through a couple of interviews and I just like talked to people at Interpret about not only like, you know, stuff I did in undergrad, but also like my thesis on like boys love actually. And it was really funny because a lot of people still like remember that aspect of me as like part of my interview process, which is like pretty cool. So.
I guess this is more similar for Zach, but what was it like, or like, were there any difficulties like adapting to workplace culture overseas? And just, how was that?
Yeah, that's such an important question because I think yes, I did. My family is Japanese, so I think I had a pretty good idea of what I was getting myself into going into the job, but also experiencing firsthand can be like very different. Everyone was nice. I wasn't abused or anything, but I just do think that like a lot of the times in Japanese professional culture, they take like professionalism and workplace culture like really seriously there, and it really is. You have to be quick on your feet and adapt and own up to any like mistakes or cultural like differences or rifts that you have. The good thing about having not worked there or having not worked and lived in Japan for a while is that like they understand that I'm a foreigner, but also at the same time, it's good to try to not make the same mistake twice and to show interest in the fact that you want to learn. Yeah.
Thank you both for sharing. I'm wondering if there were any kind of like standardized language tests that were asked by your employer while you were applying for the positions at this company.
I was asked if I had taken the TOEIC, which is not the TOEIC. There's a Japanese language. Yeah, that one. But I said I didn't, and I think I was able to bypass that because I kind of had a Japanese background, and I was able to like show during my interview that I had pretty good proficiency, but it definitely depends on the company and the sector that you're in.
Yeah, for me, I didn't have to deal with any of that. Though I do know that there are like opportunities for like engaging in like using your like Korean language, Japanese, or like Chinese language skills at like companies. So yeah, I feel like if you're interested in that, you can just kind of prove, I guess, that you have the skills, and people will adapt and give you opportunities to use them.
So I have a question for both of you. So when you guys were looking for a job or something, like, did you guys know, I want to maybe go into this field, or were you trying to be more open-minded and just trying out like different jobs that didn't really matter what you majored in, or how was that process like for both of you?
What's it like for you? Yeah, I can start. So actually, funny story. Junior year, I worked in finance for a bit, which was really weird because I'm like, I don't have any STEM background, but that was like my approach. I kept it really open-minded and like just anything that would kind of relate to the skills that I had and like research, because I feel like you don't really like lose. It's you ultimately learn like if you like this or you don't like it, and not learning learning that you don't like something is just as beneficial as like learning you like a field. So that was like my approach after my internship then, and then afterwards, like I was just interested in, again, like research related to like my own interests. So again, tried to figure out like what's stock, which is like how I got my internship, which led to my full-time position. And I think only in the last like 2 or 3 months, so like several months that I've been working, that I realized like, oh, this might be a career path like I'd want. So yeah, I didn't, even when I came to USC, I didn't have like a career path in mind. I just wanted to explore and be open-minded to like anything and everything that came my way. and see what happens. And I'm really, really happy I did because I actually really like my career so far. So.
Yeah, I feel like similarly, I came into USC thinking that I was just going to do law and do a very traditional iteration of law. But it was in my senior year that I took an art history class, and I was like, wow, I really like art history. So during my gap year before law school, I decided to kind of pursue that interest more to see if I really did like it, or at the very least, so I wouldn't have any regrets after I, jump head into the practice of law. And I ended up really liking it, and as a result of that, I think one of my secondary interests in the law is art law and kind of museum law and representation there. Art law is something that it's a very long and winding road to get there. There's only so many museums, and only so many are looking at or looking for legal representation. There's also the route where you can do legal work for artists themselves, but still it's a very niche field with not a ton of employment opportunities. So all of the art lawyers that I have spoken to, they've all started in private practice, either litigation or transactional, and then gone into art law later on. So I kind of have that long-term goal in mind. So I am glad that I kind of took a little detour before going to law school. And yeah, like I said, you're never going to regret it because you never know what's going to stick.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hello, both of you. Long time no see.
Hi.
But also, yeah, thank you both for just sharing your experiences. So, for me, as someone who's, for now, applying to go straight into grad school out of undergrad, one thing I did want to ask both of you, since both of you have kind of experience in the working world now, like, what's something you feel like you've been able to learn or experience that you could not have learned in the classroom, that maybe your jobs provided, maybe something you felt, especially because that might be like a fork in the road that I have to face, in the coming years. Yeah.
That's a really good question. Oh man, that's a really good question. I think one thing that I'm really glad I didn't go straight into grad school, but right after school was just gaining confidence, I think was a really big one. I think just learning how to trust your own abilities and understand I think in the classroom, as a student, there's obviously the very straight relationship of professor-student. You either are doing something good or doing something bad or not so good. But that becomes a lot more subjective, I guess, after you graduate, because you have to be confident in the work that you do. Sometimes you won't get any feedback, and no feedback, I learned really quickly, no feedback is actually good feedback. And so just being comfortable with that has been a really, really important thing that I've learned.
I'll remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, I gained a lot of interpersonal communication skills just through that one gap year that I took, and also through my summer employment stuff during law school right now. But I don't think it's 100% necessary to go into the workforce in order to gain that. You can get that in different aspects of school and research as well. I mean, especially for research student, I think field work requires a lot of interpersonal communication skills. So, you don't need to go work somewhere to get that. But yeah, I think what you were saying earlier about when you're in school, sometimes a lot of your internal validation comes off of performing well and getting a good grade. And something that I learned in the workforce is that, yeah, sometimes no comment is a good thing.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the times it's a little bit more like your work product is more holistic. It's not just like an A or a B or a C or an A plus or anything. Being able to adapt to that kind of more fluid environment was, I think, yeah, I learned a lot from that.
This is a question for Ayaka. Maybe I didn't catch it. How did your background in East Asian studies or fluency in Japanese impact your career path in law?
Yeah, I think it definitely influenced me in the sense that I had the confidence that I have a background in kind of like a multicultural, multilingual working environment. Sorry. I think for the law, even if you decide to ultimately practice only in the US, you are going to deal with international clients or corporations at some point in your life. And like you said, it really does boil down to if you can be like mindful of other like cultural like connotations and like linguistic differences. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using Japanese to like a legal capacity in the future. I might, but even if I don't, it really does teach you to be quick on your feet and adaptive. I hope that answered your question.
I did have a more broad question. What tip would you guys give to a soon-to-be graduate?
I think I can start us off. I think one tip that I would recommend is start building your community outside of school. I think is really, really important. Because I think that was like one thing that I was warned about but did not take heed actually. Was I feel like a lot of my life was centered around like USC, like either extracurriculars or, you know, friends, or just events and stuff. And so like right after I graduated, it was like, you had 100% of it and then suddenly it was poof, it was gone. And that can be like emotionally like a lot. So I think just, you know, start building like your hobbies outside of the USC campus, or even just like start connecting with friends beyond that space as well. And also like make sure to learn how to befriend people or like catch up to people outside of like convenience. So not just like seeing them in the classroom or you guys are going to the same event, so let's go together. Like learn how to chat with people and make plans with them consciously, and like, you know, really be comfortable with starting first, because I feel like that is one thing I've been using a lot to keep up with friends, and I'm really glad because this is, yeah, you'll need your friends after graduation.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. When I graduated, I guess I didn't realize how much of my community revolved around USC. All of my closest friends were from USC. And, you know, I also was very involved in clubs and stuff like that. So that feeling of loss can kind of be disheartening at first. So definitely try to set yourself up for, like, you know, making connections outside of USC, but also at the same time, I feel like you don't need to feel like you've completely left USC either. I kind of regularly reach out to some of my professors that in USC just for random career advice. And obviously I was very fortunate enough to be like invited here by the East Asia department again. So just because you graduate doesn't mean like, you know, USC is in your past and you can never rely on them or think of them again. So kind of finding that balance of becoming more comfortable making your own connections, but also knowing that you have like a very strong community in your like rear view mirror who's always going to root for you. That definitely did give me the confidence to do my own stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Okay, last call for questions. Oh, go ahead.
It's more of a general question, but obviously there are a lot of students or scholars in other countries like China and Japan that have students that study English and speak fluently. I guess what my question is, what is our edge, or why are we preferred than to those students?
Do you?
So can you do more context, like you mean in terms of the two professions that you're doing?
Just in terms of like getting jobs, competition.
Do you mean in like a linguistical sense, or like as a USC student?
I guess my question is, since there are students that are bilingual from students like us from USC and from those countries, like I was just kind of confused on how like we can make ourselves like stand out more, or like why should we be chosen instead of like why should we be given the opportunity over them?
I'm just in a very like harsh situation, as we know, for residents, but it could be simple as a visa. If you're a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, you probably are going to be in a better position for certain jobs with the same, let's say, linguistic skills or area studies background, right? Given that everything else is equal, maybe you'll have that opportunity. Whereas international students, unfortunately, if they're looking for jobs here, might find it more difficult to get sponsorship, right, in order to get a full-time job and a permanent job. I'm sure it's a different situation if you go abroad, right, in terms of competing there. But a lot of times, you know, I think different professions or different institutions like to have different perspectives. So I think they do want people from different kind of, so let's say you have some expertise on Japan or China or Korea, but you come from it from a different perspective than someone from those countries, you know? So just like someone having a perspective on the US, that's not American, provides a lot of insight sometimes to like our reality, you know? So having that, I think variety is important too.
I also wanted to add too, based off of that comment, Interpret like is a global company, so like I know that they really care about that, just having like all those different types of perspectives. So it also like just depends on like your company values and like the companies that you're like interviewing at, or exploring more of like who do they want to be part of their teams. And I think just like, you know, connecting and networking with people who are already like at the companies you're interested in could help provide a lot of like insight into that as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question regarding kind of like showing your linguistic skills to employers. Do you think like having those like standardized exam scores like helps a lot, or do you think, oh, just doing the interview, the employers will know your language level? And what would you recommend taking those standards language exams, or is it kind of just do the interview and they'll just grade your language skills? Or do you guys have any suggestions?
How's it been for you?
I didn't take any language tests, but I do know that if you want to show a skill to like an employer, they'll prefer proof. And I feel like a test is really, really, really good proof of like, hey, I actually do have these language skills, because, I mean, I'm not encouraging it, but in an interview, it's not too hard to like lie about it. So just, you know, having that proof can really like, you know, make them feel a lot more confident in like your abilities to do so.
I agree. To the extent that it's like needed, I think it's good to have. You know, sometimes a lot of jobs say that like it's a prerequisite or a qualification. Sometimes it actually isn't. Sometimes there is a little bit more wiggle room, but also at the same time, if you have that, if it can provide any more like inner confidence that yes, I can do it, and here is the proof, that might be helpful.
Thank you.
I would recommend on the resume, I mean, because not everyone's gonna know what this test is for and what that score means. You should write out what that means.
Yeah, like
Inside.
explain
Yeah,
it.
like say advanced, like the top, you know, or 5 out of 5 or whatever, you know, just explain what that's for.
Go ahead.
I had a question for Dio. I was actually just Googling interpret. So again, this is not my field, but like it looks very, like it sounds very interesting from what I get, like entertainment and media, like is it like consulting entertainment and media companies?
It's like market research.
Got you. I was curious to know where your Korean background kind of fit into this role and kind of like how that's been like a strength or an asset for you, like what doors that's opened, like within this line of work. Yeah.
That's a really good question. Trying to figure out how to word it. I think for me, I might have mentioned it earlier, but games, like, as you know, consumers and stuff, a lot of the big player bases, if you're familiar with video games, like a lot of developers, for example, might be from Japan or Korea as well, and it's definitely like an area of the world that a lot of people who are making games or want to, you know, develop technology, like they want to explore like what that could look like for a Korean, or Japanese, or Chinese consumer as well. So, you know, I think me personally, I haven't had an opportunity to like utilize like my Korean background yet, but I think as far as like, I guess, a lens that I've developed here or like with my degree has been really helpful in understanding like, you know, what I'm looking at and maybe keeping things in mind or adding a couple of things as far as like cultural significance or something like that could be really helpful in like developing stuff for a client or something like that. So yeah.
Gotcha.
I hope that answered your question.
I feel like that's a very common thing from all the previous panelists that I've heard is, and I think both of them have talked about this, which is about being like flexible and being able to take advantage of opportunities that come, because it is all about timing. You know, I feel like from all the panelists previously, like how they got into this particular field or this opportunity. And having those sorts of language or area studies or global experiences or whatever it is, you know, I remember students telling me, you know, someone studied Chinese but then didn't really, it wasn't their focus, but they went into the sports entertainment industry. And then it just happened to be that they were this company was gonna work with the China audience at that particular time. And the fact that he had some like basic Chinese linguistic and cultural skills led him to become like the VP of that division, you know, just things like that. So you just never know where that's gonna come in handy. And so I think that tip that you guys gave about like being open, networking, being flexible, being, you know, open to new opportunities and taking advantage of those things are so important in everything you do.
Great, I think we are gonna wrap up now, but before we end, I have a contact slide. So we're gonna open the time up now to like networking. If you want to take a picture, you can write it down. And I am going to graciously allow me to put their emails up there so you can contact them if you have any further questions. But this is also time for you to get to know them more personally, one-on-one. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you, especially